Welcome to the Sharpe Club. So happy to have you with me this evening. A little bit past 8 p.m. on the East Coast. You're saying, Larry, you are messing me up because usually your show is 7, or if it's Monday, you get special permission to stay up late at 9. That's true. Today, I've done it at 8. Why? Because I'm a man of mystery. No, actually, that's not the reason why, but I am a man of mystery. That's true. But that is not why I did it. I did it because I was trying to keep somebody happy, and then that person bailed, and now I'm stuck. So you got it at 8, so stop complaining. It'll be a good show anyway, okay? Don't complain. You're mad at me. Don't be mad. It'll be fine. It'll be fun. Please enjoy. All right, today, I wanted to bring up something which I thought was a very interesting topic. I realized that recently people have been talking a lot about the media, particularly after the debates. The debates made people really think about the media. And now recently with things happening, people are chatting about the media, right? Is the media important? Is it this? Is it that? So I have brought on a star-studded panel to talk about what really is a modern journalist. What are they supposed to be doing? What do we expect from them? All of those things. So first off, I want to bring on somebody who she's like a political, she calls a political theorist, so she calls herself, but she's kind of like also like a marketing guru and like just like all kind of stuff. She'll tell you she does all the things. It is the one and only Lauren Lee. How are you?
Hey, Larry, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And also I'm bringing on, she is a senior political correspondent for The Hill. Yes, I know you're all impressed. I don't get cool people like that on a show usually, but this time I did. Hanna was silly enough to say yes. It was a mistake. She will regret it, but too late now. The one and only Hanna Trudo. How are you?
Hi, Larry. Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And our returning champion, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, the man himself. You know him, you love him, the sci-fi guru, Michael Vass. How are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. And ladies, wonderful to be here with you. Larry, it's okay to be with you too. We're gonna have some fun today.
Yes, I can be fun sometimes. Guys,
hey,
please follow these people.
Me.
I do. It's true. It's true. Guys, do me a favor. Follow these people if you would. They're giving us some good time and give us some good energy. You can follow Lauren at She Is Lauren Lee on Twitter. You can follow Hanna at HC Trudeau on Twitter. And of course, you can follow Mike on Rumble at No Soundbites Allowed. So, Mike, I guess my first question here, the one that I think is kind of important, is we've been looking at recently journalists who've been so concerned about fact checking. That's been a big deal. Fact checking, right? A big deal. The question is it a journalist's job to fact check? And if so, how? Like, what's the job? Is the job for a journalist to just say, hey, Lauren, I'm interviewing you, so just tell me stuff. And if it's not true, then they'll figure it out later. Or should I be pushing you and saying, hey, no, Lauren, that's a lie?
Can I let's step back for a second because I want to answer your question.
No, you don't.
But yeah, I do. But first, I think it's clear to understand, we have to understand what's a journalist to understand what they should be doing. And I have to say, with no disrespect to this few good people in the industry, modern journalists are like modern audiences. They don't exist. They're not there. We have a lot of mouthpieces out there for corporations and, more importantly, political parties. We have a lot of celebrities or wannabe celebrities out there, but there are very few people who are actually doing the work.
Hold on. Let me touch you.
Greenwald and such.
No. Let me walk down that road.
Lauren, I'm not talking about you. I don't want you to think that. But
no, he was.
Like I said,
he told me
exceptions.
He told me he didn't like you, Lauren. He told me he didn't like you. Here he told me. He said he didn't like you. He told me that already. So no, I'm teasing. But here's my point, though. My point is there obviously are some journalists. Someone's getting the facts, whether it's the AP, whether it's somebody on the ground in a certain country, whether it's someone who has a microphone in their face. So somebody's getting the news. Somebody's doing it. You're talking about the person who happens to be on TV, the talking head on TV. Now, is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about far, far more than that. There's a reason why we've seen over a dozen different reporters that have been fired because of plagiarism or just outright making up their own story. There's a reason why, if you look at any breaking news, like yesterday with the breaking news on Donald Trump, you can go to almost all of the mainstream news media and they have the exact same copy. They copy and paste. The first person comes out. Sometimes it's a local news organization, and they'll come out because they actually have people who are working hard. And then
Literally, but I just said
they just copy and paste.
All right, Lauren, tell me that he's wrong. Go ahead.
Well, I think there's a huge difference, right, between mainstream media and what they consider journalism, and then you now have these independent journalists that are all over X, etc. Yes. And so I think that it's two very different conversations, right? Because on X, what we're seeing now is this huge conflict of interest, which I think is really ruining the game in terms of finding the truth. And that's that, individuals are incentivized by the monetization on X, by the clicks, payouts, to basically just send out whatever they think is going to trend and is going to reach that 20K, 30K likes. And so what I've seen is that there's a resistance to fact checking. It's more of how quickly, it's less of fact checking and more of how fast can I post, right? And so that's my concern for, X journalists and self-described journalists on X. And, that's a much different scene, I think, than mainstream media. When it comes to mainstream media, I tend to completely agree with Michael. I don't see any independent voices that are holding themselves accountable, saying, I care about the truth. I care about the American public. What I see is just people that are bought and paid for, that are receiving a paycheck from corporations to preach certain interests. I mean, we saw it.
But hold on. Let me give you a pushback on that. If you're telling me that you have people who work for companies that are getting paid to push a narrative, aren't we also in the same thing on, say, X or Facebook or whatever, because you're just getting paid for the click? So aren't you still getting, like, if I know that the old it bleeds, it leads, if I know that's true, wouldn't it be better for me to kind of not tell the truth if I know it gets me more clicks, but now I'm not getting paid by ABC or Fox News, but instead I'm being paid by Elon Musk on X?
Hey, at least you're deciding what the agenda is at that point. I feel like with mainstream media, I mean, all of them are pretty much owned by what? Just like a few strings are pulling, every single one of these puppets. And so I think that when it comes to individual journalism, yes, there's a conversation about ethics that needs to be had on these social media platforms, but it is very different than I feel like the mainstream media, which is owned again by just a handful of companies that are all saying the same things and have the same agenda. That's what's concerning.
Hold on. Let me get Hanna in. Hold on, Mike. Let me get Hanna in. Hanna, you have to deal with this, I'm sure, on a daily basis. You're competing against other companies. You're competing against X. You're competing against individual people who are trying to do stuff. Where do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from my lens. I think I come from a more traditional, obviously, journalism background. But I've covered.
It's why I wanted you here. I wanted you to give that viewpoint. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting. I think my beats have always been kind of outside the mainstream. So I started off sort of with the Bernie movement, and I've covered the progressive left and the hardcore left for most of my career. And so there's definitely the critique of the media among that faction of the political sphere. It's not just the right wing. It's really 100%. Both. And so I've heard these, I've heard a lot of this throughout my career because, as somebody that has worked at more traditional outlets, I mean, I've worked at sort of traditional and non-traditional. I was at the Daily Beast, which is kind of, edgier. I've also worked at like ProPublica, which is super investigative. So I've had kind of a wide view of these things. But I feel like, by and large, I do, for just to the broader question of like facts and fact checking, to me, like, it is imperative that journalists fact check in real time because there's just so much information that's like, there's so many things that are thrown out there. And I'm constantly like asking myself on the spot when I'm talking to people, is this correct? Like, is what they're saying true? And I think like I mean, all of my colleagues and the people that I work with in our newsroom, I know that we do that on a daily and like minute by minute basis, because it's also our reputations on the line. Like people trust us with information because they know that we're going to relay it in an accurate way. And I'm, I can only speak for myself and for, the majority of my newsroom. Like this is the sort of standard operating procedure. That being said, like to Lauren's point, I do think on social media platforms, it's really hard because we see things like in from our newsroom vantage point that come across Twitter, they might be true and we don't know, so it's kind of like I've been told in various newsrooms over the years, like something pops on Twitter, verify this, see if this is true. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, but we're incentivized also to chase down that lead. Like it could be a legitimate independent journalist who broke something that's a big story. It doesn't mean that it's not true just because it's not created in a newsroom or verified.
And for those in the audience, let me be clear on something. I mean, I know this firsthand. When stuff was happening, Hanna, you literally called me and asked me questions. Hanna literally called me and said, "Hey, is this true?" She actually, I was her fact checker. That's absolutely true. She actually did that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and I think like, for what it's worth, that's standard. I know that there's a lot of things flying all the time. There's a lot of information coming out from all different angles all the time, but that is the standard operating procedure. Like when I called you to ask you about something, it was like real-time stuff because we can't get something like that wrong. And so that's like, those are the kinds of things
Mike's mad. Hold on. Let Mike go. I think Mike's going to yell at you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, not at you. Again, this is not to you ladies, but to the industry. That's not really correct. I can tell you, I don't know how many times I've been doing this 18 years as an independent journalist, and I've dealt with news media organizations, large and small, across this entire country. And I can tell you, there are many journalists out there that cheat. What they do is you do the interview and they'll summarize what you said and publish it as a direct quote. This is very common. In fact, Syracuse.com has a couple of reporters that do that. I know from personal experience.
They've done it to me more than once.
And quoting
more than
them.
once.
So I know this for a fact. And I've seen this in many other institutions. We have seen repeatedly things like, well, let's look at the very big guys out there. The Hunter Biden laptop, it's not real. And they circled the wagons and they all said the same thing, but they were lying because they already knew it was verifiable and confirmed that it was true. Yesterday, one second. I got to get this out. Yesterday, NBC News came out and suggested that the assassination attempt on President Trump was a hoax, not with any evidence, not with any sources. In fact, in the article that they initially put out at 3 p.m., they said they had a direct quote from the Secret Service telling us that the assassination attempt actually happened. And their second paragraph, which was one sentence, said, "This is unconfirmed." Their headline said, "This might not be real." Okay, this is the problem. This is why this is why more people in poll after poll do not trust the mainstream, and again, mainstream news media. And the reason why they trust independent media is I get fact checked all over the place. Everyone is trying to make sure I have my proper sourcing. So that's I have to work harder. Now, not everyone does. And I don't really count most of Twitter in that because it's headlines. I'm talking about people who are doing in-depth work where you're not just getting 140 characters, but you're actually doing something that takes a couple of minutes to go through the evidence and the information.
All right, but hold on. Let me walk down the road. I'm with you. I'm with you. I get you. You made your point. You beat me up enough. Now let me keep going. I already went down. Let me get back up.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm saying here is it because though that they're looking for what I call that kind of access journalism? Right. So the journalist now wants to have access to the cool kids, whoever they decide the cool kids are. And if they go against the cool kids, then they don't get invited to the cool things. They don't get to go to the cool places. They don't get they don't get to interview the one-on-one interview because they weren't with the cool kids. Is it access? Is it power? Is it ideology? Why would they do that? Right. Why would a journalist go, let's call it a hoax? Or why would they go along with the Hunter Biden laptop? Why would? Because they're all mean? What's the reason? Lauren, tell me why.
Yeah, I mean, again, speaking on the more of the independent journalist side, I've noticed something on X in particular where, the more you've built your base up around a particular partisan demographic, the more extreme you're going to have to be, and the more extreme you become over time.
Yes.
And I noticed something in particular when we heard more popping sounds, right, in Florida last night. Some of the more liberal accounts that I follow, I'm just so curious, all, from across the political spectrum, how they do their reporting. And some of these liberal independent journalists were extremely quick to hop on the whole, this assassination thing is a hoax, it never happened. And in fact, some of them are still touting that the first assassination attempt was a hoax here months later, claiming that it never happened at all. Maybe he had a blood pouch. And I thought to myself, why are these independent journalists putting their reputations on the line, saying these totally crazy things? And, why are they doing this? And really the only answer I have is that mainstream media has created such a culture of quick-paced, distraction-based news to where these independent journalists can pretty much get away with saying whatever they want, knowing that it'll be forgotten tomorrow. So you can say whatever you want to say to manipulate your audience, to rile them up, to make them mad, to increase this partisan divide, knowing full well that you'll get that ad revenue, right? You'll get that monetization payout. Your base will be extremely happy. But then at the end of the day, it'll be forgotten in a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, just like the whole country now has pretty much forgotten that our former president was nearly assassinated just, millimeters away from watching a former president killed on live television. To me, that speaks to this, just toilet, news cycle, toilet flush that happens every 24 hours where we as consumers are expected to just flush all the news out of our mind, forget what everyone told us and move on. It's crazy.
So Hanna, how do you compete against that? When everyone's like, you got 25 people who are on X or Facebook or whatever, Reddit or whatever is the cool thing of the day, Instagram, who to Lauren's point are going to be like, I need to make sure I'm preaching to my audience because that's how I get my clicks. That's how I pay my bills now because I've quit working. I just do this now and I got to pay my bills. So if it looks like maybe this is why they're doing Hunter laptop. Right? Hey, if I'm on the left and I want Hunter to win, I'm going to say it's a hoax. Well, if I'm on the right, I'm going to say he's killing people in Ukraine. Whether he is or not, I'm going to say that. How do you fight against that, Hanna?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think it's interesting because I do see it happening on both sides. Like I was saying earlier, the far left is like very much into the Twitter sort of X whatever ecosystem, and they are really active in that space, and that's how they built the brand. That's how they've built, and the right now we've seen it's almost like they're competing. I wouldn't say necessarily to Lauren's point. I don't know if they're necessarily competing against the mainstream media, but I think they're competing against each other. Because
interesting.
To me, it's like a counter. It's almost they're trying to counterweight each other because it is like from our vantage point, it's more like chasing both of the extreme, looking at both of the extreme sides. I mean, I do feel fortunate in that the Hill, is super, super nonpartisan. I'm not just saying that just to say it. Like it truly, truly is.
No, you guys have Rising. You guys have Rising to support you. That stuff. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, and we, we get a lot of people on the right talking to us. We get a lot of people on the left talking to us. Like in a way that I think a lot of outlets don't. And I feel lucky in that sense.
No, I see I know Robbie personally. Like I see the people who comment, and no matter what, you get yelled at. Like no matter what, when you have a hardcore lefty on, the right's like, she's a communist. Why is she on the And when you're right on, they yell. Yes. They're yelling at Robbie. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and I think a lot of this, I mean, in terms of how do we compete with it, like for us, it's more or less like, especially in print, we just try to get out the actual narrative. And even it could be even maybe the narrative that day is this is what's huge in the right now. Maybe that's the narrative, or maybe the narrative is that I've done many stories that have said like this is what the left is pissed off about right now. and you share what they're pissed off about. And so it's like you're taking it from a perspective, but you're not necessarily saying they're right. You're not necessarily saying the conservatives are right, but you're saying like this is what's happening in this realm right now.
Hannah, most of the majority, the overwhelming majority, again, of the mainstream news media don't do that. They have a bias. I don't have a problem with anyone having a bias or telling a story, a news story, something that's newsworthy from a particular bias or a certain perspective. We're human beings. That's innately going to happen. But we have this story that comes from the mainstream news media. They're neutral. They're just telling the truth. They're just giving. And it's absolutely on its face incorrect. As to go to your question, Larry, initially about fact checking. Well, why are we fact checking only one side? Why are blatant absolute lies that have been debunked left and right, like the Charleston lie? Everyone has seen that debunked. Even the far left nut jobs at Snopes, even they admit it's out of context, it's not correct, and it's a lie to say this. And Kamala Harris says it. The moderators are so happy to fact check, but they won't say a word when she's blatantly lying on something that's hold 7 years old.
Yes, and there's a part that does bother me here. I think you're right. This part bothers me. People ask Larry, like, when you watch mainstream, what do you watch? I usually, when I watch mainstream, I watch MSNBC and Fox. Why? Because MSNBC, I actually like them better than CNN. Why? CNN pretends to be neutral, and it bothers me that they pretend to be neutral. MSNBC doesn't. They're like, no, we're lefties. That's who we are. Why are you watching if you don't like left stuff? The Fox is like, no, we're righties. Why are you watching, right, if you don't like right stuff? So I actually prefer those two. To your point, Mike, I don't feel insulted when I watch. I feel they're giving me a biased story, which I'm okay with. CNN insults me. That's why I get mad at them, because they're like, no. We are solely neutral. And they're biased, and it does drive me crazy. If I'm watching Sean Hannity, I know he's best buddies with Trump, and it's going to be a Trump story. I'm not surprised by that. If I watch Rachel Maddow, I know what she's going to say. It's okay. Like, I'm not mad at her. I get it. I think that part drives me nuts. But that's why, to be forward, I prefer the system that Rising has, Hannah, because Rising tries, and it's hard to get. Mike and I have tried this here. It's been very hard. It's hard to get left and right people who can talk to each other, who can argue and stay together. And it's why I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I don't want to get into this one right now, but I do miss Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie, because they actually had that on Rising. Right? That I missed. They've been hard to find that again since she left. Right. So please don't get mad at some people. Glad you left, some people aren't.
I mean, they did. I think that format worked really well for a lot of people.
Yes.
Because I mean, also, like, they would bring on journalists. They would bring on. I would go on their show, or my colleagues, and we would talk about our reporting, and we would hear from both sides of the hosts, like the Robbie and Brianna, or whoever was hosting that day. They would ask us from their perspective, and then we would say, well, this is what people have said. This is what we've heard. This is what we've. So I think like that is actually really effective, because you can analyze a news story, like anyone, whoever's news story they're discussing. They will, both of the hosts coming from two different sides of the aisle will have their own individual questions, but you're still analyzing that one story. So you kind of pick apart different parts. But I think it's effective.
With The Hill, it is. Almost no one else does that. And I mean, don't watch.
It is unique.
It is very unique. And I respect that. And I very rarely watch any network anything, because I can't stand them. I think they're horrible at their job. I've watched them in person and I see the finished result. It's horrendous. But I do watch occasionally. I do watch The Hill. I do think Robbie has some very interesting takes. I mostly agree with him. Not quite always.
I'm not surprised, Mike.
That's okay.
I'm not surprised, right?
But I come from a very specific point of view. But the thing I like is that he's very well researched. He's doing his homework. There's the difference. And I can tell you, when we look at most of these people most of the rest of the industry isn't doing their homework, because they're sure they're going to get backed up by everyone else in the industry. No one's going to call in. Look at the current
but hold on. When I touch this, look, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to have a team behind them, right? The person, the talking head who's on CNN or Fox or whatever, they're not supposed to know everything, but they're supposed to have an actual team that does know everything, or at least knows what they're talking about at a given time to brief them. I feel like they don't do that at all. That doesn't exist. I feel like and look, I've been to many of these. You've seen me. I've gone on these shows before, and I'm looking for the research person, and they're not there. There's a marketing person. There's a makeup artist. There's some tech people. There's no reporter there, right? That person's not, I don't know where they are, right? I don't see them. So I think
but the personality
validating what you're saying.
The personality who's telling the news should know the news. When I do my show, I do my research. I know for a fact, Larry, when you do yours, you're doing your homework. We spend the time to find out.
I bring you guys on. I bring you guys. I don't do any homework. I bring you guys on.
I'm talking about the other shows that you do. But, I have no doubt that Lauren and Hanna are doing the same thing. There's a certain amount of integrity. The reason why the most recent poll by Washington Post back in June, 7 out of 10 people in the battleground states do not trust the mainstream news media to present them with politics.
Yes,
that's a problem.
That's a problem. That's fundamentally a failure, and therefore the entire news media is useless right now. That's why we don't have. Let me grab a couple of modern journalists, not just being a journalist.
Let me grab some super chats. The Lunatic Libertarian is going crazy here. He's dropping all kind of dollars, so I got to be good to him.
Yeah, that's
He says, thank you, Lunatic. He says, there are only poor grammar propagandists.
Yes.
That's an attack. A journalist doesn't exist. To decipher information is taboo.
True.
Your info has been fact-checked already. The dumbing down is complete already. Elders failed. Wow, he is not happy. Let me keep going. Thank you for the next $99. Thank you. Academics are now accredited dunce caps. Okay, he is going on. True. And now he goes on another $2. Thank you, Lunatic. Journalism is heresy and gossip, but verified. All right. He's not done smacking. He's not done. Lunatic is not done. $10 more. He said, critical thinking skills have gone to the wayside. 20-second attention spans are prevalent. We see the generations destroyed by government education. Parents failed. Grandparents failed. Government won. Damn. Okay. Let me touch some of those.
And they got a disinformation governance board, and they're going to put it back in. If Kamala wins, she's already said she's going to do it again.
Tell us how you feel, Mike. Stop holding back.
No, I haven't even gotten there yet. You know it.
Let me touch the Lunatic Libertarian. I think there is actually a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm saying it because, Hanna, I think you agree with me here. Rising is the example of that. The 22nd, I'm a business consultant. I'm also a political consultant. I help write talking points for people going on. And so some people who have gone onto these shows, they will come in for talking points. And I would express how they're going to beat you up, what they're going to do. And many times they would say, no, Larry, they're not going to do that. It's only like a couple minutes. I'll be able to dodge. Okay, no. This is internet.
No.
This is not CNN where it's a 6-minute segment and they've already got 3 questions they have to ask and go to a commercial break. This is Rising. If Robbie wants to beat you up for 20 minutes, he can. If Brianna wants to beat you up for 20 minutes, she can. They can do that if they want to. The 20-second piece goes away. You got to be ready. And they can just keep pressing if they want to. They don't have to stop. And in many of these cases, they don't have sponsors. Like Breaking Points doesn't even have sponsors. So they don't even have a sponsor to ask for, right, to answer to. So it depends on where you're going. So I think that's becoming the future. So I think Lunatic has a point. But maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like there is a change. And I think Bobby Kennedy Jr. is an example of that. He got very far doing very little mainstream media. Most of it was sit downs, having longer conversations. Obviously didn't make it the whole way, but he got further. He polled higher than anybody since Ross Perot. So he made the biggest dent, and he made it really by, being on the Joe Rogans of the world, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That started changing. And ladies, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but about 2016, I'd say, we started to see that the mainstream media started taking individuals like myself, which I guess you can call a citizen journalist, not really, the semi-professional journalist. They started taking us seriously because we started breaking stories, and we were getting the interviews, because what happened, as an example, 2009, I'm out there, no one knows who I am. And then there was a mass shooting in my community that happened to be 2 blocks away from me. And I was covering that. And then I got to talk to the mayor. And then I was covering some of the other politicians in the area. And that was my introduction. That helped to build my credibility. I always quoted everyone in full. Local elections, I'm covering every election, all of the candidates that are willing to interview with me. And now the rest of the politicians, the rest of the media are going, he's credible. He's got this interview. It's not chopped up. It's not edited like they would do in their articles and such. This guy's credible. We have to take him serious. And we started seeing that happening across the country as more people got access to the internet.
I'm going to add on to that on top. I think your number's about right, because in 2018, now this is true. People, you guys are going to laugh, but it's a true story. I'm running for governor of New York in 2018. My team comes to me and says, Larry, great news. I go, what? You're going on Joe Rogan. I said, Joe Rogan, the Man Show guy? I literally said that. Because he did the Man Show. I was like, the Man Show guy? They're like, no, the podcast. I'm like, you got a podcast? Literally, I was like, I didn't know. One of the most popular podcasts on the planet. I was boomer and just didn't even know. Like, what? Oh, is that good? Like, yeah, it's great. Oh, okay. So I go there, and this is how it's true. That's how he prepped me. I show up. I have to fly. He's in California at that point. Now he's in Texas. He was in California then. I fly out there. I show up early. I go into his green room. He's late. He shows up, opens the door, literally says this. He goes, Sharpe here. That's what he says. I go, yeah. He goes, okay, great. I sit down. He sits down. He put on headphones. He goes, 3, 2, 1. Larry Sharpe. Done. That's how we did it. That is literally how we did it. And from that's
kind of harsh.
Yes. And when I came back, right, when I was done, when I came back, my social media had exploded. Yeah. I think I had like 10,000 followers on YouTube. And then after I had like 20,000, like it doubled. It was crazy. And that's when I saw the power of that. And that was a 2-hour interview on everything. So I think you're right about that time. I don't know. Hanna, you tell me.
Yeah, I think just to your point about RFK, I mean, I think that's really interesting. He, to me, obviously I've been covering him this cycle. I think part of the reason that he's been so successful is his media strategy. Like he has totally done his own thing, and very few people have been following him. Like in the press corps, it's me and a couple, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, if that, people have really covered him. And I think because of that lack of press on him, he's gone this other alternative route, and it's been really successful for him, relatively speaking. Like I think that is a model. People in the media obviously can agree or disagree if that's what all candidates should do, whatever. But even I remember like Mayor Pete in the 2020 primary, he did that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That. He was all over. I think he went.
People liked him.
Not as much.
People liked him.
I mean, not as much as RFK, but he wasn't doing the rounds as much as RFK, but he did a lot of alternative stuff. And I think that because his strategist was a proponent of that. And I think now we're seeing people do the alternative media route with more success, because it does reach other demographics, flat out. It just reaches pockets of the population that are not going to tune into CNN or read the Times or whatever. And I think it's for him. I think it was really effective, honestly.
Well, let me get to Lauren on this one. Go ahead.
I was going to ask her your perspective as you're not a political reporter, a journalist. So when you're looking at the news, am I getting this right? Are we seeing the same trend that you're more likely, or do you have an increase in the likelihood that you're going to look at a local somebody on the internet that you trust before or at the same time that you look at the mainstream news for, say, a local politician's election or even bigger?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question.
Yeah, it's something I always comfort myself with whenever I get frustrated at liberal bias in mainstream media is that Joe Rogan does the numbers of Fox News, ABC, MSNBC, all together combined on a bad night, So I always kind of, I remind myself that the reach of some of these more conservative or free thinking podcast hosts and independent minds are reaching, tens of millions of people per episode. And so, it's very easy, I think, to react to mainstream bias, and we certainly shouldn't stop doing that. But I think that their relevancy is dwindling. There's certainly a reason. It's estimated between 30 and 50 percentage points. That's the number of individuals under the age of 40 who prefer podcasts as a main source of getting their news to just flipping on the TV. And so people are willing to go out of their way, do their research, try and figure out what podcasts to listen to. And so, I'm not in any I'm not a mainstream media journalist. I definitely ended up on the independent journalist route through, it was kind of accidental, to be honest. But it was mostly because I was inspired by that fact that people are actually open and willing, I think, now to, put in a bit more effort to learn what the truth is.
I think we've also seen sort of an increase in the interest in a la carte type of news. So people's Substacks, I think stuff like that is the way of the future. I mean, we have these discussions just informally, but there's all these questions about okay, people can pick and choose who they want to, not just on X or whatever, but Substack is a major platform now. And if you like a particular person, you probably will subscribe to them. And so we've seen these people break out of, Matt Taibbi and all sorts of people break out of the mainstream model, do their own thing. Glenn Greenwald, we've seen, obviously. And there's, but from both sides of the aisle, people have done this. And I think because there is a lot of intrigue in being not just a brand, but kind of putting out what you think is the best approach. And that's all not always conducive to a newsroom necessarily, depending on the kind of person you are. Some people like the traditional setting and they want to have that collaboration. Some people just are more kind of lone wolves and say, I have my own brand and these are my followers and I'm going to publish my newsletter, my Substack, or whatever. And that's also a legitimate platform. It's a legitimate thing. It's not
well, Hanna, you've said that you want to subscribe, and I think you're right. So if you like me, damn it, subscribe. She's right. Hanna's correct. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, subscribe, follow, do all the things. And if you don't subscribe, you are literally saying that you hate Hanna. What has she done to you? What has she done to you? Nothing. She's done nothing to you, mean people. Subscribe and show the world that you actually do love her as much as all of us. So please subscribe now if you haven't already. If you're on my YouTube page, please do so. If you want to super chat like Lunatic Libertarian has, if you're on Larry Sharpe YouTube, you may do so if you like. That'd be awesome. You also can, if you want to, you can become a member on Larry Sharpe YouTube. $4, $4.99 per month. What does that do? That means I can do more of this and less of other stuff, right? So I can do more of this, and I can be doing this 6 times a week, maybe. Oh my God, no. But I could be, in theory. But no matter what, please click the like button. That is free. Please do so. It costs you nothing. And also, please follow these lovely people who are giving us such a great show. Please follow Lauren Lee at She Is Lauren Lee on Twitter or X. Please follow Hanna at HC Trudo on X. And please follow Mike on Rumble at No Soundbites Allowed. So let me grab, if I could, another couple of super chats. Yeah, a couple more of these if I could. Lunatic says, RFK Jun only did well because of his last name. I think part of that's true, but he took advantage of it.
That's true.
Very.
Yeah. But he doesn't deny that. I mean, he doesn't deny that. He doesn't shy away from his last name. We're well, people who have covered him and followed the campaign. It's very obvious. His family has all but disavowed him. Nonetheless, he's running as a Kennedy. He's not running as somebody else's last name. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
I think he also did well despite his last name as well. That's very interesting given how his family has rejected him.
That's a great point.
The entire Democrat party pretty much has shunned him. And so it's interesting. The people you would think would typically support a Kennedy have not. And then he has found kind of this interesting group of what I call politically homeless individuals. I feel like I fit into that category myself, and they kind of found a home with him. So it's interesting. I think he had success because of and in spite of, that last name.
Well, it got him to the door.
So
the name got him to the door, got him to the base of people he would need to then reach out when he got blacklisted by the Democratic Party and the news media in whole. He then used that base of people and his other resource, money, to then reach out and say, okay, let me find another way to keep talking. And people respected him for that. He earned his credibility. He earned it. Again, It keeps coming back to, you got to earn the credibility, and it takes time to do that. And too many people are trying to short circuit that. And
let me grab some more if I can.
Yeah.
Lunatic also says, another $10. Thank you, Lunatic. Reject the programming. Find a purpose. Make your own news. Man, I got to make my own news now? Man, don't I do enough, Lunatic? I can do more? I'm going to listen to Mike. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen to Mike's show. Mike, by the way, has a a show between 5 hours and like 35 hours, something like that, every Sunday. It's somewhere between that, whatever he does it. Yes, absolutely. Make your own news. Fulfill your life with memories that are newsworthy. Now, that is very good advice.
Yeah,
yes, 100%, Lunatic. Yes. Yeah. Pay attention to your own life, not others' lives, unless you're trying to copy them to have a cool life. Knowledge is power. Yes, knowledge is power, but wisdom is even more powerful.
And you
knowledge
get neither,
powerful.
And you get neither from the housewives of Who Gives a Damn.
Also true, but they can be fun though. That's true.
I don't know.
So yes,
I'm a big Housewives fan. So
really,
there we go. See, yeah,
I never get it.
I've watched them too. I have. I've watched them also. I'm guilty. I've watched them too. They can be fun. Absolutely, can be fun. Yeah.
Hey Larry, I have a question for Hanna, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, please.
So I loved your earlier point, Hanna, about Substack and how individuals are they're almost creating and carving out these news niches for people. So depending on your preference, right, you might subscribe to certain people and not others. I'm very interested, kind of with my background in political theory and philosophy. Do you see this creating a chasm that is going to exacerbate the current political divide, where soon we might not even be living in the same reality, right? The algorithms already do this, where they siphon us off into our echo chambers. But if we get to the point where mainstream media does fall apart somehow, right, which I see the rise of this independent media, like it's coming very quickly. Are we going to end up in the place where we are picking and choosing, like we're at a salad bar, to the point where soon we're just in completely opposite, totally different realities? Will we even be able to talk anymore?
I think that's like the fundamental fear.
Yes.
From like the mainstream media umbrella, because that is both an opportunity and a problem. So it's a huge opportunity for people that do want to have a platform, that do, like, these individuals who are independent on either side of the aisle, even neutral, whatever. There is a credible market opportunity in that sense, but it's a fear among more traditional outlets, not just broadcast, print, online, every kind of mainstream outlet. Even ones that are not necessarily mainstream. I mean, there's all sorts of outlets that this could be a problem for, that I think people are contending with now, because even we're seeing tons of mass layoffs at every kind of, and so when you're laid off, you might be inclined to go and make a Substack. I mean, I probably would if I was laid off.
We saw that during the lockdowns. Remember during the lockdowns? We saw a bunch of people make Substacks and internet and blah, blah, blah. A bunch of people did during the lockdowns. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's concerning. Hanna, just to quickly interject, it's a little concerning to me almost, because, I have to be careful myself not to gaslight myself with some of my own viewpoints. Right? Yeah. Accountability is so important. And thankfully I'm in a space where I have amazing counterparts who are constantly checking me, but not everyone who's starting up a Substack and suddenly they have 100,000 followers has that same accountability. And so it is an
I think it is a fear. To me, it's like a fear in that sense, because there are, getting back to even just our original point, like who is a journalist or what is a journalist? It's like there are certain standards. I know, Mike, you probably maybe disagree with me, but there are certain standards that if you don't adhere to them
Absolutely.
in the newsroom, you're going to be fired. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your credibility. People will stop talking to you. That's just the regular standard operating procedure within the newsroom culture structure. I mean, speaking from everywhere I've ever worked, but
no, I agree with you.
Lauren, to your point, it is concerning because those checks and balances keep everyone in check. You know, you're in a newsroom environment where you have editors. There's a couple people that look at your work before it's published. You have standards about anonymous sources. There's standards that I've talked to people for so many stories where I know who they are, but the people reading my stories might not know who they are because they're not on the record. And so there's all these different kinds of standards depending on what outlet you work at, whatever. Substack and places that are not regulated or aren't regulated is the wrong word, but you guys know what I mean. Not sort of moderated in that same way. There are no.
Yeah, you can't use the word regulated. There's too many libertarians in my audience who get all triggered. They all get triggered.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
No, I know, but it's kind of it's interesting to me because there are rigorous standards. There are fact checkers. I mean, I was a fact checker myself. Like one of my first jobs was being a fact checker at Wired. And it was a brutal job, to be honest. Like it was crazy. Those jobs are few and far between, to everyone's point. But now, anyways, this was like 15 years ago. But it's hard. And I think like when you go to these platforms where there are no universal standards or like standard operating procedures, how do you discern?
Well, what we've done right now is we've done the Wikipedia, we've done the community notes in X. No. People have tried to create some type of on-the-fly thing.
Yeah, but
that's
they
not the way
always
to do
come
it.
up short. They always
the answer is very simple, actually.
Okay.
And people keep putting it off because the simple thing is you have to do your homework. The public, the individual consuming.
But hold on. No. That's not fair, man.
Yeah.
Because
I don't care if it's fair. Let me finish my answer.
Go ahead.
I understand where you're going, but the answer is you have to educate yourself. Most people are not educated readers or consumers of news. They listen to, here's my talking head, the one it's on NBC or they're popular or whatever. I listen to them and everything they say has got to be true. It's always true. It's the bias we used to have about TV news. So other than Cronkite, anyone else who showed up on your evening news has to be true because they're on TV. That actually used to be a saying. It's
seen on TV. It was real.
A lot of people still think
I remember.
that.
But now we've gotten to the point where we have to. I read 20 different, or I review on a regular basis 20 different publications around the world on my consumption of news every day. Yeah, when I'm doing a story, I will follow the same story as an example yesterday in my live stream, and I did this live with everyone. We heard about the breaking news. I went to international first because they're going to give me a more honest spin on U.S. politics. And then I went into, when I hit NBC, I hit Daily Beast, I hit a couple of different sites to show people the difference in how the articles were written, the way the headlines were written.
All right, hold on. Hold on. I get
education.
It. I do, but here's the point. If you're going to do it, why the hell should I? I'll just watch your show. That's the point.
Because
you're literally making my point for me.
Because what am I adding to that? What's Matt Taibbi? What's Glenn Greenwald? What are we adding? Even Robbie, what are we adding to that? There's another element that makes a journalist. It's not just the accumulation of the information. It's the dissemination. When I give back, okay, here's the research I've done. You may have done it. Maybe you didn't, because you may not know everywhere to look that I do, because I have experience. And now I'm going to apply that.
I got to pay my bills, Mike. I can't be looking at the news. I got you.
Of course. And that's why you come to me, because one, I found more sources than you did. And two, I'm going to apply my experience and knowledge to then add something that's not in there. Like for me, it's like, okay, this is our past. This is how we got to this point. And what's going to happen next? What's the most logical, direct consequence politically? Okay. And I can answer that with a high degree of accuracy.
So why do I have to do it?
Huh? No, you just have to be able to understand more than the basic concept of whatever I'm saying. You can't just go, gun control is good. No, that's stupid. No, it's not. It's very nuanced.
Now you insult people.
Great. No, they're not. They're evil.
Lauren, tell him I'm right because you got to pay your bills. Just say you got to pay your bills and I'm right.
Yeah.
You get my point. ladies?
Here's where I would push back on you a little bit with this, Michael, is I do think we're rapidly approaching, Brett Weinstein calls it the Cartesian Crisis, and I love that phrasing of it, where we are so unsure of what the facts are in any given situation that we are rapidly approaching the point where for the average mom of 5 kids, who is trying to just get through the day, she doesn't have the time to research in the status quo, much less as we enter this, new era of AI, a bunch of individuals on X who call themselves journalists who are leaking documents. And so my concern is, as people who are staunch libertarians, as people who do want to preserve our autonomy, what accountability mechanism is there to preserve the truth in this new era where soon we're going to be on such shaky ground? I think it's such a destabilizing place for a culture to be when there is no ability to verify what's true.
If we don't have independent knowledge, then we will always be fooled. We'll always be dependent on someone else. And we do have enough time. You spent an hour watching the Housewives of wherever the hell, the 90-Day Fiance fiasco.
Another great show.
Crap. I also like that one.
Another great show. Why are you taking a dump on all our shows, Mike? These are great shows.
Okay.
What are you talking about? These are great shows.
Why
do you hate mothers of 5 people, Mike? Why do you hate mothers of 5 kids? I don't know why you hate them. What did the mothers do to you? I don't know why you hate them so much.
Watch Farscape. You'll be happier.
Michael, you can agree with me, though, that it is becoming increasingly difficult, especially with AI, to know what the truth is. And we might soon not be able to verify as many facts.
Yes, but I think the bigger problem with AI is not what is the fake things being considered true. It's that we're rewriting the truth. As an example, Kamala Harris was border czar. That's a fact. March 24th, 2021. We saw that internationally covered. All of the news media refer to her. She's the border czar. And then retroactively, approximately 50 days ago, all the mainstream news media went back and said, no, she's never been the border czar. I don't know what you're talking about. That's what scares me about AI.
We've always been at war with Southeast Asia. Remember that from 1984?
That's another one. So
they changed the war. Now we're at war with them. Yes.
Yeah, and that's my real fear. And that's why I say independent. If you know something, then when I tell you the lie, you have something to compare to and go, wait a minute, I don't remember it like that. Let me double check. Something is wrong.
Let me grab a bunch more super chats. I got a lot of super chats I got to grab. They're coming a lot at me. Ryan, $2. Thank you. Some of us are news junkies. That's true. Some of us are, but not all of us. Some of us have, to Lauren's point, some of us are moms who have 5 kids, and we can't do that. And we have 5 kids, so sometimes we're going to take a half hour out and watch 90-Day Fiance because we got 5 kids. So we want to watch that. It's fine. Ryan also says, another $2. Thank you. I also watch Larry and Dave Smith podcast. 2 very good choices, by the way, Ryan. I would agree with those. Very good choices.
One more. Mine. Go on.
Oh, there we go. And add no sound bites allowed. There we go. But you don't have to watch the full 17 hours on Sunday. Watch like an hour and a half or something. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yes.
Literally no sound bites. Just 17 hours.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. Yes. Sarah says, to your point, Lauren, I think Sarah was on the same page. She says, will we even be discussing this in the age of AI? And let me touch that now if I could. One of my biggest worries about AI is AI can make news or even fake news or unreal news very, very cheaply. And if they take the spin to your earlier point, Lauren, where I know my audience, so I make up stories that'll get my audience happy, I'll get all those clicks, I can do it cheaply. And if I get banned, so what? I'll do it for 3 months, I'll get banned, I'll start another channel, I'll do it again, I'll get banned, right? I think you're seeing that on YouTube now. On YouTube, there are channels, I don't know if you guys know this, that are all AI. Everything's AI.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yes,
I mean that's a problem.
Yes.
Like the thing is, I feel like even within the mainstream media context, I don't know what the conversations that are being had around this are. Like I feel like we're almost way behind because I not that I'm like super in the know about anything, but to me it's like these should be at the forefront of more mainstream newsroom conversations, and maybe they are in some places and I'm not aware of them, but like to me it seems like this is a big problem. And I think I remember back like when there was that doctored photo, God, this was a while ago, but there are all these like doctored photos that come up and we don't know if they're true or not, and even as like journalists, like we're looking at them, is this real, is it not, and some of them do look super realistic. And I think being able to like that, this was probably 5 years ago that the first one came around, or something. It was a Nancy Pelosi one at the time, and it was, I forget exactly the context, but like everybody was trying to decipher, is this real, is this not real? And I think now, I mean, we're way beyond that. Like there are so many.
You got to add what Lauren said, right? So here's the next piece. Now this thing pops out. I don't know if it's real or not, but I got to be the first to post it so I can get my clicks.
Well, that's
so what am I going to do?
Yeah. I'll give you a great example, okay? And I can use this from my own personal, because I've been posting this week and avoiding like the plague, the Haiti issue, the Haitian immigrant issue of eating the cats and dogs, okay? I cannot figure out for the life of me, Larry, are they eating the cats or not? I'm hearing from primary sources that there's satanic altars in the cornfields. I'm hearing from the liberal media that the mayor says everything's fine. And then there's this independent journalist on Substack who I love, who says that she went there herself and she saw a beheaded cat. So I cannot figure it out. And I think that this is really where, so I've just refrained, right? I've refrained.
I have too. I have said nothing. I'm with you. I have said nothing.
That's like the more responsible thing to do. Like you're looking at all these things. You see primary source people. You're looking from different angles, and you're still like, I don't know enough to post it, but that's more responsible.
I'm missing out on some major ad revenue. The ones that are posting about it, they're getting the 50,000 likes,
but that's
and
not
I could
right. But that's not
it isn't right.
That's not right. Though. I mean, it's
not right.
But it's not right. But the real answer is, first, one, not all of the Haitians are illegals. Some of them are. And what happens when you have a large group, 25% of your population explodes overnight? Not everyone can be housed and fed. There are homeless people. Do homeless people catch animals just like anyone who is hunting and eat them? Sometimes, yes. Is that the majority? No. Do some of the people, the Haitians, do some of them believe in Santeria and or voodoo? Yes. Do they use sacrifices for that? Yes. All of them? No. So the answer is there is a portion of that. It's probably not.
That wasn't her point at all, Mike. You missed the point.
Reported. So
you went down to telling the truth. That wasn't her point. Her point was, how can she figure out what's going on without going down the rabbit hole that you clearly went down?
It's deductive reasoning. Take the facts and then just deduce and then work through it. Because if you look at more than one story, the reason why we're getting so many stories, because they all have the element of the truth. They just aren't saying it all in the one place because they have a political agenda that they're told they have to push. For either for monetary reasons or from the bosses.
What's really difficult about this for the independent journalist is while I'm sitting back and trying to figure out what are the facts on the ground with this Haitian immigrant story, for instance, and that's just one example of many.
Yep.
There are, for every one of me who's sitting back and not earning that money, right? And just sitting back and waiting, there are thousands of accounts that are posting, that are earning that money, and who are gaining mass numbers of followers, right? So it almost becomes a question of, over time, with a compounding effect, are the ethical independent journalists going to be weeded out of the system because they simply
no.
That's a really
nice. And let me touch real fast. Hold on, real fast. This is a good point, Lauren, because this goes back to your earlier point. If my audience is left-leaning, I don't want it to be true, so it's not. Because my audience is going to give me clicks if I go, this is crazy Trump and blah, blah, blah. My audience gives me clicks. If my audience is right-leaning, I got to say it's true because that gives me clicks because Trump was right the whole time. So my incentive is not to go down the rabbit hole, Mike. My incentive is to follow my people and to give them what they want.
But where does that leave Lauren? Like, where does that leave people like Lauren in that?
Yes,
space? It's like they are homeless in that sense.
I have an answer for that.
They don't have that niche have people that they're going to necessarily incentivize, like with their, you know, I've decided I'm going to take the right wing position on this. So it's like, or today I'll take the left wing. Like that doesn't make sense if you can't figure out if it's true, you know, I mean.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and then I want to hear Michael's response, but I'll add to that by saying this has been one of the foremost difficulties that me and my two other co-founders have had with starting the Daily Independent, which is supposed to be this news from an independent perspective, because we're too left for the righties, too right for the lefties, and we don't have necessarily that base who's just going to hype up whatever we say. So we are competing in the kind of this rat race, right? Yes. Where we're seeing the highly partisan accounts grow very quickly. And although we're doing record numbers for the independent space, it's still very difficult to compete. So yeah, Michael, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Call me an idealist. And
you're an idealist? No. Wouldn't,
but my thought is that the most ethical, the most correct, the most honest will rise to the top. It's these bot farms or whatever.
What's your example of that?
What? Well, let me get
what you just said. I don't see any of that.
Well, Robbie is probably one of the better examples of that. And we're talking about someone who's more centrist overall, and he's trying to give the most honest.
Robbie's centrist?
More what? Have you listened to Joy Reid? Have you listened to Hannity?
That doesn't make Robbie centrist, but that's okay. Okay, it's fine.
Well, it's comparative. Okay, there's no absolute here. Okay, it's the realm. But what you'll see is, these guys will get an advantage short term. Over the long term, they disappear because they're always chasing the next thing, and people realize, given enough time,
I see no example of that, man. Joy Reid has been making a killing for decades.
Who?
Rachel Maddow has been making a killing for decades. Sean Hannity making a killing for decades.
Okay,
even the right has been making tons.
There's women. You're talking two different things. There's mainstream, which is being pushed by corporate, which is being pushed by wherever they get the money. So you get the DEI. Yeah, she's going to be fantastic. But in the independent space, which is what I think Lauren was talking about, and I think that's the future. People are going to, again, going back to my example, I'm going to the local person who did the local interview with the guy running for legislator or city council. I trust him. He's not doing that clickbait crap.
But there's
eventually, I'm only going to be looking at that guy, not the clickbait.
This is Hanna brings up a valid point. But here's an issue. Hannah's making a very valid point here, right? I got to pay my bills still, right? I got to make the money. So that's an issue too.
Only to the point, only because I mean, I agree with that completely about local news being like the most, it's like the number one place I think most people would want their news is from the local source, but they're 100%. Dying like faster than anything.
Absolutely.
They are dead. I'm from New Hampshire, like a libertarian sort of leaning state. They're like completely dead.
It's a jungle.
On arrival. And these
it's a jungle. You don't do this to get news.
But no, Mike, it was not a jungle 30 years ago.
The news media industry loses money for every corporation that owns it. It's a loss leader. It has never been, because it's a intellectual property. You don't make money off it because there's nothing tangible. And it's also not really fun.
You tell me Fox makes no money
off of the news? No, they lose money on the news. They make money on everything else.
What's everything else?
Entertainment. They make movies. They make TV shows.
Hold on. You're telling me Fox News? I know CNN loses money. CNN is a bloodbath of money. They lose like $9 million a year. They're a bloodbath. You're telling me that Fox News loses money every year?
On the news department. They lose money.
All right, I don't think
the corporation makes money. The reason why they do the news is it is a constant draw, and they get the advertisers who will then advertise on other products as well. And that base, now, once I've got you into the pattern of coming to my channel, you're going to stick around for the next program and the program after that. And now I get more and more ads. But
no, I know. Grandpa goes to sleep and watches the rest of the shows because he's asleep. I'm right, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a loss. And that's true of every one of the corporations.
All right, I'm gonna do some homework on that one, guys. Chat, do me a favor. I go to chat. See if Fox News loses money. I think he's full of it on this one. See if MSNBC loses money. I know CNN does, but I think MSNBC makes money, and I think Fox News makes money. I think they do. Let me grab some more super chats real fast while my minions see to make you wrong, Mike. Let's see if they make you wrong or not. Let's see if they will. Let's see if they'll make you wrong. Let me grab a couple more. I gotta grab the rest of these super chats. Lunatic says, "Thank you for the $5. We see the psyop when we break down all broadcasts. Three-letter agency spies are mixing the recipe as well." Mike is correct about the pundits. So, well, Lunatic's on your side, Mike. I do think that he's right about that. We've done homework on this. The CIA and FBI have been involved in mainstream media. That's true. They have been. I don't know to what level, but I think that absolutely is true, that as happened often. Ryan's also on your side, Mike. He says, believe it or not, I get my news from foreign outlets. Yes, I know they're biased too, but at least they report what goes on in the world. All right, I don't know. This is becoming a Mike show. I'm not liking you guys. What are you doing? Stop that. Be mad at him.
As well as averages, I eventually have to get some people to like me.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. Sarah says, journalists are basically coral snakes. Now, for those of you who don't know, we talked about coral snakes last show. That's a joke. That's a bring back from the joke. I did an AMA and people asked about coral snakes. When I do an Ask Me Anything, I take on anything and people ask me about coral snakes. That's what that's from. So thank you for the $2. That's amazing.
Inside joke.
Yes, inside joke. That's why I was telling you, no one's going to get it unless you happen to watch the AMA last time. That's why I did that. So yes. All righty, hold on. Let me grab a couple of these comments. We have a bunch of them. Let me grab some if I can. Let's see here. A lot of people here. Let me grab one or two of them. Alexa says, I'm mysterious, says the most honest politician I've ever seen. Oh, thank you, Alexa. Thank you for being a member. I was mysterious. I'm a man of mystery, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not. Rick is on your side too. He says, Vass is the boss. Oh my God. Your people showed up, Mike. What is going on? Like you brought a fan base with you tonight.
They're your people. They just,
yours, not mine. Look at it. They're all yours. Lauren, you messed up. Didn't bring your crew with you. What happened?
I know. Where's my crew? Come on, guys.
Yes. Johnson says, always fun hanging out with Larry and friends. Oh, nice. There we go. Now, Roy's teasing you. He says, Voss is presidential. He's not answering your question. Nice.
Yeah, I saw that, Roy. I saw that early on.
There we go. We got that one. I love that. Dave says, a modern journalist is someone who reports first and fact checks later and prints corrections on page 6 2 weeks later. This is our point, though.
Happens a lot.
I mean, sometimes you kind of have to rush, don't you?
No.
You got to rush to get stuff to print sometimes. Sometimes you do, or you lose the money.
Hanna was talking about this at the beginning. I think Lauren was talking a bit in terms of when do you fact check? Matter of fact, you asked it as well, Larry. When do you fact check? Like in an interview, in a debate, when do you fact check? I can say in my experience, I've done a lot of interviews with various levels of even vice presidential candidates, national vice presidential candidates, all the way down to local. My thought is always, unless it is egregious or it is confusing, I don't fact check them at that moment. That's not my job. My job is to get their answer. Here is my question. You have to answer the question. I don't have to like the answer. I don't have to think it's a good answer. As long as it is concise, it is clear, and it is not knowingly false, then that's your answer.
I agree with you.
Say yes or no.
Is that in real? Is that a live interview, or is that you recording their answer and then doing something later?
Both.
Okay.
I will not. Now I will push back, and pushback is, okay, you've given me an answer that is unclear, or you're trying to dodge the question, and that's a little bit of experience. You have to be able to hear that live and go, no, you're walking around the answer.
But what if somebody says something to you that's patently false on the spot?
Then I will. That's again, if they're dodging or they're factually incorrect, I will correct.
If they say something and you know that it's patently false, I think you should
tell you what I do. I have done this before. I disagree with both of you. I think you never fact check in person under any circumstances. All you do is you clarify and put them on the record. I've done debates. I've interviewed people. And if I say, so Mike, you're running for president now. So is your name actually Michael? And you go, it's Johnny. And I go, oh, it's Johnny. Okay. So I'm gonna be clear, Michael, what you're telling me is your name is not Michael, it's Johnny. and you go, yes, done. That's all I do.
Well, that's a
I
tactic.
make
That's
sure
they do
that you literally
that's
said that.
News. That's the cable news approach. They do that
yeah,
a lot.
I don't
know.
agree
But
with
what Larry just described, I've heard people do on cable news, where they will say, "Are you saying?" and then they'll repeat what the person said, and then they'll say, "Yes, this is what I said," and they all and the journalist or whoever it is, the host, will say, "So you are saying XYZ," and they're trying to make it. They're almost trying to fact check.
Well, sometimes they do that, or sometimes they use that as a way to attack a person because they miss.
Okay, well, that's depending on the situation. I mean,
but I think if you're factually, if someone, as an example,
hold on, no, let me touch my piece. I didn't say, "So you are saying." I said, "So you said." That's not. I'm not making. I'm not making up the thing. I'm not doing that. I'm not making up, because that's how they attack. Mike's correct. Yeah. That's how I turn your words against you to attack you. So you're saying you hate women, right? That's how they do it, right? I'm not, unless you actually said, I hate women. I'll go, oh, you hate women. So you said you hate women? Yes, I said I hate women. Okay, done. I'm good. I can move on, right? I'll let the person lie as long as they said the lie. I'm not pushing the lie.
But then would you say that later on? Would you say this is a lie? If you're putting it out there?
Yes, yeah. Later on, if I'm talking to somebody, if I'm having a conversation with someone later, and now it's my opinion, and I'm saying my opinion, I might, like, if in other words, if I'm being interviewed by Lauren later, and Lauren goes, hey, when Mike said his name was Johnny, I said, yeah, he lied. I would say that to Lauren in my interview when I'm done. Yeah, he lied right to me. He said his name was Johnny. His name's not. His name's Michael.
The problem is we've lost that moment because people watch the headline. They look at the first story, not the second story. They don't care about the follow-up in almost every single case.
Yeah, that's why I think it's more important to do it on the spot.
Right, but that's, again, why it has to be factually absolutely incorrect. Kamala Harris said that the United States, we have no soldiers in combat zones around the world at this time. Absolutely blatant.
She did say that.
100,000.
Blatant lie.
Absolutely blatant lie. And that should be fact-checked because it is a blatant, absolute lie.
Yeah.
It is not credible in any way. And to not challenge her on that is to lend credibility, which then will affect an election. It is our job ethically to then say, because it is so blatant, to say, oh, that is wrong. Now, you can go on and say, but did you miss? That is not the correct thing.
But hold on. Here's a better way.
Does my system, the way I do it, does that make more sense than Larry's?
She's saying no. Doesn't.
Well, I won't choose between the two of you, but I will say, it's remarkable, the opposite extreme, right, of fact checking to the extreme. I love JD Vance when he called out Dana from CNN saying, are you wanting to debate me or are you asking me a question? Because with Kamala Harris, you gave her multiple choice answers to choose from and then allowed her to expand from there. And I thought that was a genius clap back at what was so obviously an attempt to debate. And I think what we're seeing a lot of times in mainstream media is, these corporations are trying to debate the candidates they don't like and then babysit the candidates that they do like.
Yes.
It results in just, the truth is sacrificed at that point.
Absolutely. And they waste time too. Again, going to ABC News, Philadelphia, the interview that most people have not seen and has not gone national. ABC News did a local news interview with Kamala Harris because they need Pennsylvania. And it was only 5 questions, 11 minutes. 11 minutes with a presidential candidate. 11 minutes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was
one of the questions was, can you tell me why people like Orange Man bad? Because they should love you. That was the 5th question, the final question in the interview. I swear to God, I am not taking it out of context.
She might as well have said, why is Trump so bad and you're so awesome? She might as well have said that.
What he said.
Why is he so bad and you're so awesome?
Yes. Why are you giving me fluff? Yes. So that's the other part of the problem. Go ahead.
No, I do think like that sometimes the local interviewers really do hit the nail on the head because there's more I feel like they're able to get into issues in a way that like sometimes the big stage events, these big production events, whether it's a debate or a town hall or whatever it is, they're so produced and they're so mass market that it really deviates away from like what a local journalist would ask in a one-on-one conversation. And like being from New Hampshire, there's a lot of these small town halls with random like local journalists who are really well versed in the questions and the issues on the ground, and like their content gets next to no clicks because nobody knows them, or they don't have the CNN platform or the Fox platform or whatever. And so I think it's like, how do you almost compete with that big stage, that big audience? And I mean, even our affiliate network, News Nation, is really trying. Like, we've had RFK on a bunch of times. I know Chris Cuomo, who came from CNN, like he's had an actual platform with RFK, and
more than once,
a lot, because he sees a lane for more of that independent voice. And I think like
Agreed.
News Nation is trying to do that. Like, to Laura, a lot of what Lauren said, they are trying to be something that's not CNN, something that's not MSNBC, and something that's not Fox. And like, there's a debate over if it's working, if it's not working, but like that's like something 100%.
Happening. The trend is there. You're totally right. The trend's absolutely there.
They see it as an opportunity. It's really, I will say, like, it's really hard because people want the outrage. They want what they.
Let me grab another super chat if I could, guys. Alexa, I think she's on your side, Mike. She first says, that's why you do your own research. Yep. So there we go. And she also says, if I can find the other one she picked up, she's on your side twice. She then says, Alexa says, Larry's always right, which is true. That being said, I'm with Mike on this. I can fill my brain with info I choose, or I can let someone else do it with their choice. It's happening either way, but it's my call. You brought your people, Mike. That's not fair. You brought your
none of my people. These are none of my people. These are all yours. But I would say this. Maybe it's this.
Sarah, hold on. Sarah says it's the Mike show.
I wish I could use. He's the moneymaker. I'm begging for people to see my stuff. He's the moneymaker. But
you can head over to No Soundbites Allowed, by the way, to watch your stuff.
No, and the ladies gotta see the ladies, support the ladies. Please do.
Absolutely, 100%, guys. Since I had that moment, let me take the moment to do a little bit of a shilling, if I could, guys. Please follow Lauren under. She is Lauren Lee on X. Also follow Hanna at HC Trudo on X. And Rumble, please follow Mike at No Soundbites Allowed. Before we go further, I got 1,000 more comments I got to grab. Before I do that, let me ask the important question. What are you guys doing? Lauren, tell me what you're doing. What are you doing?
Well, I've been kind of brought into this interesting new space of trying to find fellow independent thinkers who are not necessarily left-leaning or right-leaning, but they are truly independent minds on X. And I've definitely found a couple. And we've started the Daily Independent, which is a daily show on X Spaces. It's an hour over our lunch break every day at noon Eastern time. And we meet together and we discuss the daily news. Sometimes we'll have guests on. Larry, you were our guest today. You were phenomenal.
I was.
And so, yeah, we're trying to build out this space where we can begin to push the independent movement in general, because we think it's so detrimental, this two-party system that is keeping people in this gridlock, constantly fighting, not able to know what the truth is. And so that's what we're building out over at Daily Independent. So yes, you can follow my personal Twitter. I repost from there a lot, but also just the Daily Independent on Twitter, and you can join in for some of our shows sometime. It's a good hour.
There we go. Hanna, what are you doing?
That's awesome. So I'm covering the election. The home stretch of it here. This is my 5th cycle that I've covered. I'm this year I'm doing RFK, as I mentioned, but I've had kind of an interest in insurgent candidates over the years, on both sides of the aisle. Everyone, from the squad to the sort of the right, and now the independents, third party lane. I've done some Cornel West coverage, so I'm sort of all over the place. But I do like sort of non-traditional, non-mainstream kinds of things. And I've been working for The Hill for 3 years now. and I'm very, very happy over there. They give me good space to explore this beat. So it's all good.
There we go. That's great. Mike, what are you doing?
Oh my God. Basically it's two things. One, we still do every Sunday show, which yes, it can be at least 2.5 hours, can go as far as 12 hours of me talking with the audience about international politics and domestic politics, how they're interacting and affecting us all looking forward. But I have a new thing that I'm working on, and it was your suggestion, Larry. And I think it's a good one. An entertainment. Man does not live by politics alone. He must have beer, he must have bread and cheese, and he must have entertainment. And for me, that
video games,
sci-fi. For me, that's
sci-fi.
sci-fi.
Like
Video
yes,
games, sci-fi, movies, anime. That's it. And so I launched a channel, Old Man Vass, VASS. Old Man Vass is my more entertainment channel, which I'm doing every Saturday, 3 p.m. I'm trying, what I think I will be doing every week is inviting in a guest. This week, for the launch, I'm going to be bringing you in, Larry, to do a top 10 list on various things in sci-fi, like top 10 villains in sci-fi movie and TV.
That's what we're doing.
And I'm going to, and basically it's a challenge against Larry and say, here's my top 10 list. Is yours better than mine? And we let the audience decide. So that's the idea.
So people, you have to come on Saturday so I can beat him, because if his people show up, he's going to win in a vote. So you got to come and watch the show and make my top 10 the best.
If you like sci-fi, you would pick me. That's just the answer.
I already got my list. I made my list like yesterday. I already got my list. I'm ready to go.
Oh God, overachiever.
Yes. I'm going to get a star, teacher. I am. Yes, I am. All right. Let me grab a couple more of these comments if I could. I appreciate that. Let me see if I go ahead. Sarah says, I've seen Sky News. We're going to check out the others. So yes. So someone does look out there for other things. That's interesting. So, all righty. Roy says, Twitter breaks more news, but as Hanna says, no checks/balances. So DGJD can just grab lies they see there and broadcast, threatening both innocent immigrants and electoral integrity. But doesn't Twitter have the community notes? Don't they do? Is community notes not working? Is that ineffective?
I don't think so. I think they're not that effective from what I've seen. I mean, I don't know, but from what I've seen,
not used that much. There's a lot of stuff that I see from major, credible people that should have it, left, right, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that should have a community note, and it's just not there.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. Yeah.
There we go. Kim says RFK Jr. is the only candidate left who lives up to the legacy of his dad and uncle. Oh, that's nice to say. The rest of them are watered down Democrats not worthy of the Kennedy name. Wow, that's a little bit of a slam. But I'm not sure you're wrong. Kim, I'm kind of with you on that one. I'll tell you my 2 cents, and I've said it publicly. The fact that his family turned on him, shame on them. That's an embarrassment. If my daughter now is 20, if my daughter were to go off and run for office somewhere, and she ran as something I'm not, she runs as a communist or something, whatever. I'm not a communist. She runs as a communist. And someone asked me, I'm not going to go, my daughter's a piece of garbage. I'm not going to do that.
No.
I'm just going to say publicly, my daughter is her own person. She does what she sees fit. Good luck for her. Now, at the dinner table, we're going to have different conversations. But publicly, I'm not going to slam my daughter publicly. What a crappy dad I am to do that to my daughter publicly, right? His family picked their paycheck from the Democratic establishment over him. Shame on his family. They don't have to back him. That's not required. They should have just said, you know what? We don't believe what he's talking about. Have a nice day. Good luck, Bobby. But they didn't. They literally attacked him. Shame on him. Am I wrong on this?
I think it helped. I honestly think it helped him with more of the Trump, like when he did endorse Trump and go over to the Trump side, like I think that helped him, that they shunned him. I think because in the beginning stages, I remember like there was a lot of talk where people would say, and people have said to me like, oh, no Republican or no Trump supporter is going to vote for a Kennedy. Like that's never going to happen. And it's like, then his family came out against him and all of these things happened. And we've seen it throughout, all the developments. do support him. I mean, it's like there's a widespread embrace of him in Trump world for right now. I mean, anyway. And so, like, I think his family disowning him or disavowing him helped him with the Trump people, which was probably at this point in the game is his goal, at least as of now that he's out. You know, I mean,
got it.
I think a lot of independent media looked at RFK kind of the way that I did. And that was because he was blacklisted by the Democrats, because he was demonized by even his own family, without giving him the chance to have his voice heard. That's why people like myself went to some of his events and covered those events, or covered him to say, screw you. You don't get to do that to someone just because you don't like them. And that gave him the base. That added to his base. And really gave him that move as the other third parties didn't have it. You can't say the same thing for Dr. Cornel West or Jill Stein or Chase Oliver, because they're not in that same scenario. No, they're not being blacklisted. Just no one's really, they are, but not in the same way.
They're being ignored, not blacklisted.
Yes,
they're just being straight ignored. So let me grab another one. Lunatic Libertarian, you are just throwing the super chats. Okay, you want to be heard, brother. I will listen. $5 more. I appreciate it. I am a heathen of Odin. Larry, I know all too well the importance of wisdom. The life experience is lacking for far too many. Life and liberty. I agree with the life and liberty part completely. Absolutely. I know a lot. I have seen a rise in the old Norse religions in this country in the last 20 years. You see a lot of guys now wearing that Thor's hammer upside down. That's a thing they've been wearing a lot. I've seen them. You've noticed it, Lauren?
No, I haven't.
Yes, if you look, it's an upside down hammer. It looks almost like an anchor, like an anchor, like that. It's upside down. You'll see it common. A lot of people are falling back. They're actually changing their names to like Odin's son, Odin daughter, and stuff like that. That's a thing.
I didn't realize this was a movement.
Oh yeah,
3%. The 3%ers like that a lot. A lot of them.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's absolutely a thing. So yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So Graham's, I think it's Graham. Oh, is it
Graham?
Graham?
It's Graham. He's one of my people. Okay, Graham is.
I knew you brought your people.
The one. All right, go on.
Here's a question: should the mom with 5 kids who doesn't have the bandwidth to keep up with news and politics cast a vote in the election?
That's a good question.
Legally, she can, but should she? It's interesting.
Yeah, that's a Graham question. All right.
But I'm going to bring up a point that I thought, right? When I was overseas, and you were overseas too, Mike, when you were in the Marine Corps, so was I. When I was overseas, I only voted in federal elections. I could have voted in local elections, but I chose not to because I had to vote. For those who don't know, you vote by mail when you're overseas, right? So I voted by mail, and I didn't vote in local elections, not because I couldn't. I could have asked for a ballot, and I could have gotten a local election. But I felt like I didn't know what was happening locally because I'd been in the Marine Corps for years and I wasn't living there. I mean, I had an address in New York. It was my mom's address, but I wasn't there. I voted out of her address. I was overseas. And I feel like I felt like I shouldn't vote local because I didn't know anything. I only voted in national elections. So it's an interesting concept. What do you think? Should she? Again, to be clear, he's not saying she should be barred legally. This is an opinion question. Should.
You're asking, starting with Lauren first, or where you go?
Whatever. I don't care. Go ahead. He's your guy. Tell him what. Go ahead. Graham loves to ask these questions. I mean, Graham, we'll go into the deep answer on that on my show. The quick answer, 30-second answer is, yes, she should be able to vote. And she should be ostracized by her peers for not being aware. And we should incentivize her. Maybe ostracize is too strong a word. We should incentivize her to become more aware, to be more involved. Yes, she has 5 kids. Again, you have the time. It's how you manage your time. And you know what? Focus on the one thing that is important to you. Is it abortion? Is it gun rights? Is it illegal immigration? Is it education? I don't care what it is. Pick the one thing, spend an hour, at least once a week, if not once a day. Read on that from several sources. Vote based on that. That's all you need to do. But what about the idea that
Yeah,
mom
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with that. I think it is it is a personal responsibility. I mean, I totally get the being a busy mom. I'm not a mom myself, but I do understand like being a busy person. But I still, to me, it's like the onus is on the individual. There should be incentives. It should be easier. There should be less crap out there. It should be easier to not have to weed through all the misinformation and whatever there is. But it is, as a citizen, you should inform yourself if it's an election year, I think.
So Lauren, why do Mike and Hanna hate moms?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on MSNBC. There we go.
Exactly. I'm ready. I'm interviewing for my show, Mike. Think I'm gonna get hired? I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you'll replace Chris Cuomo. Go ahead.
Yes.
But I will say, I don't think that there should be ever any requirements or expectations of any sort of education level on the right to vote. And I do believe that,
he meant should, not right. He meant should. That's I want to make sure of that. That's what he meant.
Even should. I would push back against even that, because I do believe that the collective voting system does give us an insight into the state of our country, for better or for worse. And it is a mechanism to expose the weaknesses and the propaganda. For instance, it's amazing to see how many young women are being radicalized by the Democratic Party. You wouldn't see that without the ways that certain states are going, right? And the rapid rise and conversion of certain states to more of a progressive side. So I think that voting is incredibly important, not just as a personal right, but also in diagnosing the issues that are going wrong in this country. And we almost need that to have any sort of corrective action to the contrary to put us on the right path. So I think that there's a lot that goes into voting. I would always hesitate to say that someone should stay home.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't sound like I was saying they shouldn't vote. I'm very much saying they should educate themselves, even if it's on one thing that matters to them, before they vote. I think one of the most dangerous things is an uninformed voter.
Okay. You're saying even if you make them a single issue voter, it's okay.
What's that?
Yeah.
You're saying even if you make them a single issue vote, that's still okay. Yeah. But they picked an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But as long as you're informed on something, fine. I have a problem with the uninformed, because that's just cattle.
The problem,
cattle do whatever they get told to do.
The problem with that, Michael, is it brings us full circle in this conversation, which is that most young women who are brainwashed on certain progressive issues, for instance, who are being manipulated by the far right, they think they are very well informed. In fact, they'll debate Charlie Kirk for hours, on campuses nationwide, right? So
I've seen them.
There's this, chasm that's forming to where someone can be completely ignorant of the facts on the other side, but think that they are, the most educated, the most scholarly on certain issues. And so that's where it gets a little bit murky to define what is, the correct level of education.
Well, I would answer that by saying, if you do not include your opposition in your reading and understanding and study, if you don't understand the position of your opposition, you have failed. You don't know anything. You're in an echo chamber.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Yeah.
I read as much, almost. Again, I point to.
Don't say you read the left as much as you read the right. Stop that. Don't lie.
Yeah, I do. And when I do my live stream, you will see in every video and live stream I do, approximately 90% of every source I will use is only from the left.
All right, that's it. I'm watching your live stream this week because I think you're full of it.
I always.
I'm watching
90%
I'm watching it.
Okay.
Right.
Never from the right.
So Ryan thinks it should be a Sharpe Vass ticket 2028. The problem is we're from the same state. We both live in New York City, so one of us has got to move. That's the problem. One of us got to. I
think we're going to fight on who's going to move out of New York State.
I know. I think I'm going to hang out with Hanna in New Hampshire. I think that's where I'm going. I'm going to New Hampshire.
I'm in New York City right now. I live in New York City.
No, but you're from New Hampshire, right?
I'm from New Hampshire. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go hang out with your family. When you go, you can hang out with me too. Whenever you visit your family, we'll have lunch. It'll be great.
Oh
exactly.
my God.
Yeah.
So Alexa says his nephew, meaning RFK Jr.'s nephew, on TikTok was the worst. Yes. And they all smear him while he keeps his stance, which is Larry's. He says, I love my family, but I don't agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He does that, right? RFK Jr. says, I love my family and agree, but his family was terrible. Alexa is correct. Thank you for the $5, Alexa. I appreciate it. Yes, it is a little bit nutty there. So, yeah. All right.
But the nephew is really, really cute, and all the girls are all about him on TikTok. So.
Yeah. And it's funny. If you're a cute guy and you're on TikTok, the women just love you. Remember that one guy who was like a terrorist on the Yemenis pirate? Remember that guy?
He had multiple felony convictions for violent crimes, and they wanted him to be a supermodel. Yeah.
Oh, no, different guy. That guy too. Yes.
No, that was
the guy who. Yes.
That guy was.
There were two separate ones. Yeah, two separate ones. One of them was a Yemenis pirate.
Oh, him? I don't remember.
Yeah, there was a Yemenis pirate. They were like, oh, he's the greatest. The guy's a Houthi rebel. He's like blowing up ships. I'm not joking. It's true. He's like blowing up ships. And they're like, but he's so cute. He's blowing up ships, civilian ships even, not even like military ships. He's like blowing up civilian ships. They're like, but he's cute. And then the other guy, Mike, yes, he was like a felon and like the women were trying to go after him. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
that was crazy.
Serial killers. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. It says his last name was Tsarnev. It was.
Oh, was that right?
Tsarnev.
There we go. No. I don't remember that. Yes. Mm-hmm. So yeah. All righty. Wright says Sharpe for president. Thank you, my friend, but not this year. I do appreciate it though. Not this year. I do appreciate it. Maybe another day. So Gene says news and sports are entertainment. Ooh, look at that. News and sports are entertainment. That's not bad, right?
Getting more and more true.
Yeah. Well, Kim says the news market is flooded. Is it? I mean, let me ask you that. I mean, Hanna, this is literally what you do. Is the news market flooded? I feel like she might be right.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. It is. I mean, everybody has their own thing. Everyone has. It's a lot. You know, despite all the layoffs, despite all of the jobs being slashed, despite all of these opportunities going away, I feel like there's just almost too much out there. There's like one news event doesn't need to have 100 angles. Sometimes it's just no, I'm serious, because like it is often overkill. It's like you'll see the same news event covered in different outlets, like little tiny differences in the same thing, and it will extend the story for a week. That's maybe a one-day story because everybody has their, and to me that's oversaturation. Personally,
that's an interesting point. Yeah, so it means they have to like fight more over this in a way.
Yeah, but because you want to come up with something fresh, and like that's fine. That's legitimate. Like everyone wants to have their own spin on something. Like if we're not going to just do the same story, for example, that like Politico does or the New York Times does. Like we're going to have our own spin and our own twist on it. But I think that when that happens with every given news event, it becomes way too much. It's too much.
Got it.
You know, you have to.
Well, I have some good news for Laura and Hanna. Sarah says, we like Laura and Hanna a lot too. It isn't just the Mike show. So, Mike, you can't have all of them. Okay. You don't get everybody.
I'm getting any.
There we go. You don't get all of them. Yes. Alexa also says, thank you for the $5. She says, she's not wrong. My sister truly believes that Kay is going to be the one who heals the divide and is all anti-war. I can't process this. As in Harris?
No way.
Really?
No way.
No, that's true. There are lots of people who think Kamala Harris is going to do that. Yes.
Are they all in coma?
No, they're all exactly to what Lauren's saying. They are brainwashed. That's exactly true. Lauren is exactly correct. If you look at this, if you look at the gender gap right now in America, it is huge. Far more women are left than men are. And if you are educated, which means you have a college degree, that's how they decide if you're educated or not. Mm-hmm. If you have a college degree, the odds of you being a Democrat are massive. You're a college educated woman. And if you're a college educated woman, You vote at about 85%.
Okay. And here's the thing I would suggest, and I don't know if anyone's done it. I've not seen a study. They should do this. Are women voting for Kamala because she's a woman and a woman of color, and because of that political impetus that their colleges have been teaching? Hang on. And there's been the whole intersectionality push indoctrinated into them, and their justification for that is to say, well, she has these great policies. Or is it the other way around? Are they saying she has great policies and she's a woman? Which one comes first? I would hazard to say, especially since we know in 2019, she was rejected by everyone, including all the Democrats, 95% of Democrats.
I know the answer to your question.
It's the indoctrination first, and this is the justification of that indoctrination.
Yes, but not for her. It's an indoctrination because she is the chosen one. That could have been Buttigieg. That could have been Buttigieg.
This time.
I'll just say, like, the campaign is very much, this has been noted, you know, in a bunch of places and on Twitter and stuff, but it is a thing that she and the campaign are trying to distance themselves from the whole first female president moniker, obviously because of maybe, you know, we would think because of the Hillary connotation and the downfall of that. So I think, like, it's been interesting to see since she became the nominee. It hasn't been so much of a focus on, like, this is the first female president. Like, we don't see that.
You're right.
We don't see that.
Yes, I agree.
You know,
they have absolutely walked away from that. I agree.
That's a big thing because they I think, like, that is a strategy shift that it didn't work with Hillary, obviously, and it didn't work with Kamala in her, like Mike just said, in her 2020 campaign. And it didn't work for Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it's not effective for whatever reason right now in this moment.
I'll tell you what I think it is, right? I think it's a smart move because the people who care already know and vote for her. They don't need to be told.
Right. I think
already
that's
get
what
it.
they're
People care know it already.
Calculation. Yeah.
And everyone who actually thinks about it would say, yeah, but being the first doesn't mean you're the best. You know, DE hire. She's being promoted up for failure. But
it doesn't matter. It's very popular still. You're acting like because this is a popularity contest, man. It doesn't have to be right or good.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm not doing as well as I could, because I don't care about popularity. I care about the truth. I care about accuracy, at least from what I can understand based on what information I have.
I care about a fun show.
Popular.
That's it. I want a fun show.
I know. I do that.
That's all I want.
I do that. People love to hate watch me.
Larry, here's some fun for you, Larry. In response to Michael's question, I think that we are witnessing the results of a decade of intentional and purposeful manipulation of young women based off of fear. You know, the number one way to manipulate women is to make them feel unsafe. And my theory on this and hypothesis is that they have cruelly been triggering young women, especially around sexual assault, around gender conflict issues for the last 10 years. And it has widened this chasm. Again, we're talking about kind of these existential gaps of information between Republicans and Democrats. Well, it's also happening between men and women, and it's very, very unsustainable. And now what you're seeing with Gen Z and the radical nature of Gen Z women and the kind of just the mass brainwashing that's going on, this has been in the works. These women are being raised by the Me Too women who were triggered and remain triggered. Who have not been empowered by the Democrat Party, but who have been fear-mongered half to death. And so if you're looking, whether you're looking at voting patterns or you're looking at the atrocious state of dating in this country where young people are getting married at later ages than ever, people are finding it very, very difficult to find partners of character. There's a reason for that. And it comes from this fear-mongering on both sides. It's happening with men as well, but to a very different tune. So I think we're facing a cultural problem that is remarkable, and we're witnessing the results now, and I'm not liking this divergence.
We are going to have that. Cannot be tonight's, because we'll speak for 3 hours on just that. I just want to say I see what you're talking about in my daughter, who's 20, and my youngest is 14. I have 2 daughters, and I see it. I see how tough it is for her to communicate with boys her age. I see how challenging a lot of her peer group is. And many of the girls in her peer group think men are evil. Anything masculine is bad and evil and wrong. And I'm like, how are you going to find a man if you think everything that's masculine is bad and evil and wrong? It's going to be tough.
It's a very
going to be tough to find a man. Yes. And it's very weird how that's happening. I think I agree. Alexa agrees too. She says, thank you for $10, Alexa. She says, I was about to say when Mike mentioned it, keep in mind we're raised Mormon and are perfect candidates for said brainwashing. The difference is I do my own research. Man, you got her good today, Mike. She's on your side. So yes, but I think it's a valid point. And the thing I hear all the time is I would talk to some of my daughter's friends and I'll ask them what their concerns are. And they'll say things like, we have to, as women, have to have basic human rights. And I think to myself, that's brainwashed because women clearly have basic human rights. I mean, if you're saying you're downtrodden in some way, okay, maybe you are. I'm happy to hear that conversation. But they're not saying that. They're not saying this is not fair or that's not fair. They literally say we need basic human rights. It's not even true in any way, shape, or form that women in America have any trouble with basic human rights. And when it comes to New York specifically, when you look at someone like Kathy Hochul, who literally says you have to vote Democrat in New York. Why? To protect a woman's right to choose. In New York, that's not a thing. Like, that's not a thing in New York. In other states, it is. In New York, that's not a thing in New York. In New York, abortion's codified in New York, and you get an abortion up to the day of birth. You can get an abortion in New York State. You can, right? Up to the day. New York State is completely okay, codified in law. There is zero chance of that being an issue. But you're right, Lauren. She says it, and it scares women. And again, I'm not saying other states. In New York State, that's not a thing. You're totally right.
If you can perpetuate the victim and perpetrator narrative, then you have your demographic in the bag when it comes to voting on election day, and that is exactly the cycle that we're seeing mainstream media in. It's the cycle I see a lot of independent journalists falling into is, I'm a victim, because that's what's cool nowadays. They've created an environment where you're cool if you're a victim. And so you're seeing the result of that with people who are just incredibly brainwashed and they don't even know what their rights are.
My daughter has she's a fun meme. She says, hey, what kind of mental disorder can I claim and still be okay, but still use slurs?
Well, it's
that's like a joke they say, right?
It's actually a fad with Gen Z young people in particular on TikTok where they're now putting in their bios what their mental illness diagnosis is and what medications they're on, almost as a point of pride. I mean, they're getting like pillows in the shape of pills. They're proudly talking about taking Ozempic. This is absolutely a national, crisis that we're in, where we're proud of our disabilities instead of trying to find.
My daughter is weird in that she doesn't take a pill. She's the weirdo in her world. I'm not joking. Like, the majority of her friends are on something. The majority of them are in therapy. The majority are taking some form of pill, and the majority are in some form of therapy. That's horrible. You're totally correct.
Isn't it great what the Department of Education has done to indoctrinate and to domesticate the public? Don't think the government will do it for you. They have a rule for everything. Take a pill, be happy. This is 1984. It is become authoritarian. And this is why people must become educated on whatever issue is your thing and then vote on it. Absolutely. And that's why we need independent media. Yes, there's a glut. You're right, Hanna. And that glut will work itself out as people weed through the fluff to get to, you have to get through the chaff to get to the wheat. Well, that's the process we're in right now. Same thing happened with all the internet companies during the internet bust. Everyone, I have an internet company. It'll make money. And then it blew up. We're seeing the same thing with the crypto.
I would go with the even look at the Hill and News Nation. I mean, looking at those organizations, the big three, MSNBC, Fox, and CNN, have just been going down, down, and down, and down, and down. And somehow News Nation is still able to survive, when in theory it should be struggling, but it's surviving. It's still doing something. So I think there is something good there. So let me grab Sarah. She another $5. Thank you. Everything is a pendulum swing, but the twist now is that the Democrats are seen as the good guys, and they're actually the demons. It's very scary. Lies. And I think in the youth, Sarah's correct. The youth see Democrats as the good guys. She's right.
Because they were taught to see them as that. They don't know any better. They literally, some of them from literally kindergarten have been programmed to think that way. And we know this. We have the libs of TikTok. We have their videos on TikTok, on all the different social media platforms, telling us they are indoctrinating our kids and how they're doing it and what for. So yeah, I'm not surprised kids think that when they don't get taught how to think. We have a generation of kids who are socially inept, don't know how to communicate, and they don't know how to think. And then you add in a news media that is saying, we will think for you. Here is the feeling that you should have. Take a pill, do what we say.
Yep.
That's the problem. And that's why we need the independent media, which is why it's so sad that modern journalist equals modern audience. In other words, doesn't exist.
Okay.
For the mainstream.
All right.
Again, Hannah, for the mainstream.
Kaylin says, one party for the masculine, one party for the feminine, and sure, a third for everyone else. Well, look, if everyone else can just be normal, then that can be the best party. So I'm okay if we can do that. If we could just not make our masculinity or femininity our number one thing in our world. Hopefully it can just be one part of who we are. That'd be nice. Maybe not the number one thing, but yes, I would hope that we could do that. So I do want to remind everyone, please do me a favor, hit that like button. It really does matter. I know I ask you all the time. Hip check that damn thing. Hit that thing with your nose. Smack it with your left hand. I don't care. Do whatever it takes. Touch the button that is like. It matters, because otherwise I get shadow banned. So please do that. If you haven't subscribed to me on whatever you're watching on Twitter, whether you're watching, this goes on Rumble, you're watching on Rumble, wherever you're watching. If you haven't subscribed, you hate us all. That is what a bad person you are. So why would you do that? Subscribe and I forgive you. Subscribe and I forgive you. See how easy it is? Just subscribe. It does matter. Click that notification if you can. You know, super chat me as always, but please share it. It does matter. Before we wrap this up, anybody want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I have a question for everyone. I meant to, I was willing to get back to this. Ladies, you may be too young for this, but do you know what Snapple? Do you know Snapple?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, there used to be an ad campaign for Snapple back in the 90s. You'll remember this, Larry. You're old enough.
True.
Where they said they want to be number 2. They were number 3. And their thing is, we don't want to be number 1. We want to be number 2. We want to be your second choice. Now, that was a very successful ad campaign, did a lot for them. Looking at the environment in terms of news, shouldn't independents be looking to be not to replace the mainstream? We don't have the money and the backing for that, but to be number 2 or number 3, to be even in the top 5 of choices that the public can get. Isn't that success enough? That if I have 50,000, if I have 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 people who are watching me, no, I'm not going to get rich. Maybe I'll just break even, but at least I'm in there with the others. Isn't that enough? Or do you guys think that I'm wrong?
No, I like what you're saying, right? If it's me, and I don't consider myself really news, I consider myself kind of like a talk station, if that makes any sense. I'm like a talk station. That's what I consider myself. And I would love it if people would go to whatever news station they want to and then say, let me see what Larry thinks about that. You know, what's Larry talking about? I would like to. That's usually how I use it, by the way. To be very forward with you, I have to watch some form of mainstream media almost every day because, as you guys know, I do press hits. So I'm the guy who they call to be in the press, and I talk to News Nation. I go on the shows on News Nation. I go on the shows on, wherever I do those things, right? So I have to watch some mainstream news. But generally speaking, most of my news comes from my team or people who are watching, who somehow text me or get a hold or DM me and go, did you see this? Mike, you do it to me all the time. Hey, did you see this? You see this? People do it. You see this? You see this? Happens all the time to me. Oh, so then I decide, who do I want to look at to get a piece of that? Like, who do I look at to decide whose views I want to grab from that? And I get 2 or 3 views, then I make up my own view from that usually. So I would love to be someone's number 2 or number 3. I'm with you, Mike. I don't know, Lauren, what do you think?
Well, my personal ambitions are different. So I definitely don't strive to be number 1 and beating out Fox News. But I will say, as the industry as a whole, I am all for the podcasters' war on mainstream media. And I certainly hope that they do not only, make that number 2 slot, but they actually beat out mainstream media at its own game. I think we're already seeing that happen, but I am all for that takeover. I think the corporations are past their prime. I think a lot of people see through it at this point. There's a huge generational gap in terms of whether or not you trust mainstream news. And so I think it's on its way out. And so, not speaking for myself personally, but speaking for the industry as a whole, I'm certainly here for the takedown.
Okay, Hannah, what do you think? Should that be the goal of the independent journalist, to be the number 2 or number 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting. I to me, like, from the kind of Hill News Nation side of things, I think they are definitely like striving for something really good right now, because they are trying to. They know they're not CNN. They know they're not Fox. They know they're not MSNBC. Right. But they also know that there is a lane for this kind of independent, nonpartisan, like seriously nonpartisan kind of coverage. And so they're trying to stake out their own ground in that. And I think that is really worthwhile, because we're all working, like the 4 of us have our own sort of niches, but within the mainstream niche, I think that it's really worthwhile what they're doing, because they're seeking out, even for panelists, they're seeking out independent voices that you wouldn't see on CNN or Fox or whoever. And I mean, that kind of stuff I think is really almost like groundbreaking in the cable news landscape.
No, I agree. News Nation has brought me on. I was on Dan Abrams' show, right? They brought me on more than once. I've been on many times. Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
So I do think there's like room for it within the cable news ecosystem. I think print is different. I stand by obviously like our work at the Hill it is that middle ground. And I think that's why they're like, it has such a wide reach, because people know that it's not biased. Like, we definitely have opinion sections like everyone, but if you want just like a straight up news article, you'll find it on our site. I'm not even just saying that because I work there. Like, that's like literally the truth. So, and I think that's really important too, because if you want to just find something and cite like an event that happened, that's what we're trying to do, and I think I've done really well.
There we go. All right, let me grab a couple of comments real fast. Noah says, it makes us, when we feel like victims, feel entitled to being coddled, and we want to be coddled more than anything. Oh, that actually makes it sound sweet. I mean, it's terrible, but it does sound sweet. It does. So yes. Sarah says, it's brainwashing, and it's the nervous system in chronic stress, not actually danger. We must teach children to calm themselves and develop discernment. This is a valid point. We have kind of lost the idea of what is actual stress, right? And our system was made for stress, like there's a tiger going to eat me. Yeah. And now stress is like, well, I have to say hi to someone I don't know. That's not a tiger, right? That's a whole different thing.
Depends on who it is.
That's true. Yes. Yes. There are probably some tigers. I would agree. Sarah also says, I drank Snapple, too much of it. There we go. So some people did actually remember the Snapple piece completely. Guys, I want to tell you all who are watching, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. After this, do me a favor. Once this is over, please come back on whatever you were watching. And I want you to place a comment once it's over. Why? That helps the guy that always bugs us, Mr. Rhythm. Al Gore Rhythm. That guy loves when you come back and you put down comments. So come back after, I don't care what you write, right? Just write that I'm correct. Do that, and that Mike is wrong. Just write that if you want. That'd be awesome. Write that. Great comment. Do that.
You're gonna
once
get
it's
like
over.
a couple of hundred. Mike is wrong just because. You know that, right?
That's the whole point.
It's okay.
It's all
I'm
good.
used
Do
to it. I
that.
love it.
And tomorrow, guys, I will be on at 1 p.m. my live show, WYSL out of Rochester, New York. If you want to call in, please feel free. There will be no show for me on Wednesday or Thursday. I will be in Denver at the at the Independent National Convention. I'll be speaking there, but I will have a show on Friday. I will see all of you very soon.